Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the reading of the one-shot entitled Teenage Rebellion and Consequences Thereof. Here's the summary. "You go handle your child," Vlad ordered, glaring right at the sickly-looking man. Yagi, sickly as he was, coughed up some blood in sheer surprise of the statement. "Midoriya is your kid, right? Go handle him," Vlad clarified. I am not related to young Midoriya," he finally managed, face red with embarrassment. "I would still admit, this has been a complete 180 in Midoriya's behavior. It just doesn't feel natural," Shouta continued. "It can be a quirk affecting him. He has been acting this way since the provisional licensing exam. Who knows what quirks were there?" Midnight suggested. "Have any one of you even considered the fact that this might not be a quirk, but just little Midoriya figuring out that there's another way to respond when you feel you are not being treated right?" Hound Dog suggested, with a sly smile on his face. Shota's left eye twitched. "You mean to say—" He trailed off for some reason. "You mean to say that this is the Green Beans' version of a teenage rebellion?" Namuri squealed as she finished her sentence. As if on cue, Vlad and Hisashi hit their heads on the table. "You mean to say that this is not going away?" The voice hero was wailing now. The ground beta fight between Izuku and Bakugo resulted in a house arrest for both the boys involved. Shouta thought that mulling over what they had done wrong would be good for the two students. Izuku did mull the fight over. Only his impressionable mind came to the conclusion that he had held his own against Bakugo Katsuki. He almost won. He didn't even plan to fight. This was an all-instinct-based fight, clearly an area Bakugo excelled in, and still, Izuku came so close to winning. This was the first time fighting back had resulted in injuries to the other person as well. Bakugo looked subdued, too, like he now had to contemplate whether he can hit Izuku or not. This was a result of Izuku retaliating just once. Izuku hadn't realized it then, but what had made him fight back was anger. He had been angry that Bakugo thought so little of him. What right did he have to question how Izuku got the quirk? With these thoughts in mind, Midoriya Izuku's brain started to click something into place. No one had realized it yet, but the day Izuku would return to school was going to be a hell of a lot more chaotic than any other. Shouta had thought that whatever Togeda does won't really matter. He was the alleged next number one, and his class of 18 was nowhere near his level. In the end, it was all a demo of what a work study can do to you. He seriously did not anticipate Midoriya jumping on Togeda when he called the match, and he certainly did not anticipate Togeda sporting a scar on almost every part of his torso and face. Midoriya had scratched him like an angry cat, and when Togeda was going to gain the upper hand, the boy jumped back huffing, not because he was tired, but because he was angry. Shouta hadn't realized that Midoriya would take the loss that hard. He was one of the most calm and mature children he had ever taught. "If I knew what your quirk was from the beginning, you wouldn't stand a chance. Alleged next number one my ass, you can't even beat first years if they know what your trick is," Midoriya growled. Shouta thought that maybe he should stop this, before the creature that certainly wasn't Midoriya turned to him. "A work study is like a free 30-day trial to being a proper hero. You can learn how to do a lot of stuff, and it ensures that whatever heroes graduate from any school aren't complete rookies," Midoriya yelled, what seemed to be the definition of a work study. "It was that simple. There was no reason you had to humiliate us against a third year to tell us what a work study is." Shota's breath hitched. "Okay." "Sensei, you talk all logic, but this was the most illogical thing you could have done." Midoriya stomped off, most of the class gawking at what had just transpired. "Whoa, that one sure gets wild," Togata commented, while rubbing a scratch Midoriya had left on his face. Hey, Mirio, how did he do that to you?" Hato asked, relentlessly poking Togata from the side. "Yeah, he said he figured out your quirk and your trick, but he really didn't do anything," Amajiki added. Shouta knew Amajiki admired Mirio. He wasn't going to believe that a first year figured him out. Shouta didn't believe it either. "He was right, actually. My trick is essentially anticipating what my opponents do. He did something I had not anticipated, and he beat me, fair and square," Togata answered with a genuine smile. "Well," Shouta announced, getting the attention of the class of brats. "A work study is, essentially what Midoriya said. If you are still unclear about the details, visit me after school hours." Shouta finished and left. This whole facade was really unnecessary. Not even the start of the day, and he had a splitting headache. Shouta entered the teacher's lounge and promptly fell on his sleeping bag, which muffled his groan. "It was only homeroom. What happened?" Hisashi asked, far too used to Shota's antics. "Problem child happened," Shouta said. Hisashi raised an eyebrow. "Well, that wasn't a specific answer." "You'll see," Shouta replied, his voice still muffled by the sleeping bag. Now, Hisashi Yamada was a logical man, and he knew that his friend could be illogical at times, especially when it came to teaching his students, so he thought that this was another one of Shota's episodes of being overly dramatic about the situation. Midoriya was an angel. He wouldn't do anything to warrant this reaction. 30 minutes into the class, and nope, something was definitely wrong. This demon spawn could never be Midoriya. 10 minutes had passed since Hisashi had given the class some problems to solve, when, while solving them, Midoriya began to rant about how it was such an illogical language. "I before E, what a fucking joke. Half the time the rule does not even apply," the boy had said in frustration. Half the class stared at the boy with worry and concern. The boy in question continued with his rant. "What is up with the pronunciation of this language? They don't make any sense. Sometimes I wonder what the makers of this language were high on when they made this." The rant had continued, and continued, till almost all of the class was gawking at Midoriya. Hisashi came back to the teacher's lounge and not so gracefully fell on Shota's currently unoccupied sleeping bag. "So it happened to you too," Shouta said, now having had enough time to calm down and make himself a cup of coffee. "That demon spawn can't be Midoriya. What happened to my perfect little angel child?" Hisashi whined almost hysterically now. The heroes present in the staff room were interested now. What must Midoriya be doing to warrant such reactions? When Nomuri came back from her period with Class 1A, the teachers expected a similar reaction. "I find it adorable," she chirped, clapping her hands. "She is not human," Shouta grumbled. "What happened in your class?" 13 found herself asking. She was curious now. "Well, we talked about hero history today, and Midoriya went on a full-on debate with any and all the people who challenged him. I haven't seen that child be so competitive," Nomuri answered, with an ear-to-ear grin. The rest of the day was foundational heroics, and since most of the class was still injured because of Togata, they got an early leave. Shouta was worried. Togata, the idiot that he is, came up with an offer for Midoriya to work under Sir Nighteye. Sir Nighteye was a man who had a reputation of being purely logical, much like Shouta. But rumor had it that Nighteye absolutely despised Midoriya. Something about the boy tarnishing the legacy of All Might. Shouta hopes that the next day Midoriya would be back to his normal problem child ways. If he doesn't, well, Nighteye is in for a load of trouble. Bakugo was joining the class today as well, so it's only natural for Midoriya to get a little subdued. "Stop muttering, useless Deku," Bakugo yells at Midoriya, and it hasn't even been 10 minutes since the start of the day. "You are the only one who seems to have a problem with it, so I think I won't," Midoriya quips without skipping a beat. Bakugo gapes at him like a gutted fish. Then the boy realizes that he is Bakugo and should not be taking shit from anyone, so he retaliates, threatening explosions popping from his palms. Midoriya looks the boy straight in the eye and activates his quirk as green lightning surrounds him. None of his brats were expecting Midoriya to stand up to Bakugo. The boy never broke rules as long as it wasn't in the field. Shouta lets out a defeated sigh. So much for Midoriya being subdued around Bakugo. Shouta groans, audibly, hoping that the two will stop doing this at least in his presence. Both teens are way too concentrated on each other to acknowledge the teacher. "You want to go, shitty Deku?" Bakugo, the idiot that he is, challenges. "Come at me and see what happens, Bakugo." Midoriya challenges right back, and right before the two of them jump at each other, a wall of ice is stopping them, while Ida and Kirishima are holding back their respective friends. "Midoriya, Bakugo, detention for unauthorized quirk use in class," Shouta drawls. "He started it," Midoriya accuses, pointing a finger at Bakugo. Midoriya is starting to sound more like a child than he ever had. For once, he is actually behaving like a 16-year-old, and Shouta does not like it. "He riled me up," Bakugo counters. "Me thinking about Todoroki's quirk riles you up?" Midoriya questions. Bakugo looks like his brain has just shut down. Todoroki's uniform catches fire. Ashido squeals, "I ship it," from somewhere. Shouta rolls his eyes. This is so not Midoriya. What has happened in the last 2 days? "Take your seats now. First and only warning," Shouta concludes, knowing that he can't actually punish Midoriya for standing up to Bakugo, but he soon realizes that he made the wrong decision, since he is subjected to both boys glaring at each other as if glaring hard enough would burn the other. Uraraka looks amused by this. "What has happened to Problem Child?" Shouta whines as he enters the teacher's lounge. "Is he still possessed?" Hizashi inquires. Shouta simply nods. All of the UA faculty seem to have noticed the change in behavior from Midoriya, and for the first time Shouta has come to realize that the little devil has almost all of the staff wrapped around his finger, including Shouta himself. No one is willing to punish him in the slightest because they find it adorable. Namuri's words, not his. The rest of the school day goes by without much fanfare, and the teachers breathe a sigh of relief until Togata shows up at the 1A door and claims that he is going to take Midoriya to Sir Nightaye's agency. Shouta had forgotten about that after the events of this morning. He hopes Nighteye would be rational and hire Midoriya without question. Shouta would if he were in Night-Eye's position, a boy who has already faced and defeated S-class villains, having passed the provisional licensing exam with an all-time high of 95 out of 100 points, and all that while he was in his first year. Shouta wasn't being biased. Midoriya had all the markings of a good hero if he started listening to rules and was guided in the right direction. Night-Eye could do both of those things. With what he had done with Mirio, it was only natural to assume. No. Sir Nighteye hadn't been rational. Midoriya had come back to the dorms fuming with rage. Shouta, for the sake of everyone's safety, had followed the boy. Izuku wasn't expecting Sir Nighteye to be this rude. The man had seemed to hate him from the depths of his heart, and Izuku could only hold his anger in for this long. "You have 3 minutes to take this stamp from me. I don't think you can anyways, because I know of every single move you are going to make. I can easily dodge." Mirai hadn't even finished speaking before he sees the boy jump at him. Mirai, from what he had heard, thought that this boy respected his opponents and therefore played it very safe while fighting an opponent. He had known the first attempt was coming, but he hadn't realized it would come this soon. Mirai dodges. Barely. From what he saw at the sports festival, this boy should not be capable of using one-for-all without breaking his bones. But here he was, jumping around his office, and Mirai felt like he was training with Gran Torino. The boy wasn't quite as fast as the jet hero, but he was fast enough. He had only seen how the boy would attempt to take the stamp. He had skipped everything in between, and he was only now realizing that he had skipped the important part. 2 more attempts were dodged before Mirai felt a jolt of pain in his legs and he was on the ground. Right then something hit his torso, and he was out of air to breathe and on his knees, and as he tried to get some distance, something hit the side of his head, and he was on the floor. Without him even having time to make sense of what was happening, his arm was held in a position where one jerk would dislocate his shoulder. "Hand the stamp over or you lose your arm," Midoriya threatens. Mirai has another look at the boy. No, this can't be happening. He hadn't seen any of this. The boy grins in victory. Mirai lets go of the stamp. He had concluded that Midoriya Izuku had gotten lucky when he fought Muscular and Moonfish. Mirai had concluded that the boy was riding on top of one-for-all and had nothing to offer to the quirk. He had concluded wrong. To beat violent people like Muscular and Stain, your movements have to be precise, your attacks have to be brutal, and there was no room for hesitation. Izuku wasn't a fan of being treated like shit. There was no way he was ever going to accept an internship under Nighteye, not after the man had used his quirk on Izuku to prove his point. Unwinnable situation, Nighteye had called this. Well, a lesson for next time, Izuku supposed. When the participants in a battle had a gap in power and speed to this extent, knowing what the other was going to do would have never helped. He promptly threw the stamp on the other side of the room as Sir Nighteye got his bearings. "You..." Nighteye went to speak, but Izuku cut him off. "No," Izuku stated and continued. "I don't think a work study under you would do me any favors. You have nothing to offer." It hadn't been long before Midoriya had reached the dorms, and if one had an ounce of self-preservation, they would avoid poking the boy. "Whoa, Midoriya, you look upset. Did you not get the work study?" Kirishima asked, almost immediately. Shouta rolled his eyes. Of course, he was talking about a class of kids who never had heard of the word self-preservation. "No, I did not," Midoriya replied, and the tone was cold. The message was loud and clear. "Like someone would accept your sorry ass as an intern," Bakugo commented, and Shouta saw the following events unfolding in slow motion. All at once, Midoriya jumped right at Bakugo. Kirishima, who had sensed the danger, ran to cut off Midoriya's path and shield Bakugo from certain death. Both of the running teens collided with each other rather painfully. Midoriya got his bearings, and his eyes locked on to Kirishima, a new target. He was about to jump on Kirishima before Asawi called out to him. "Hey, Midoriya, wasn't there going to be a rerun of an All Might movie you like to watch tonight?" "Wait, I almost forgot. All Might Around the World is on tonight." Izuku perked up. "It's my favorite movie," the boy muttered to himself, and then looked at Kirishima as if weighing the pros and cons of the decision. But the way the anger left his eyes, it was clear what decision he made. "Thanks, Asawi," Midoriya chirped, smiling at the girl before running off to switch on the TV. Kirishima looked at Asawi and gave her a grateful smile. "How?" Uraraka was shocked to see the sudden change in Midoriya's mood, and how gracefully Asawi had handled it. "I have younger siblings," Asawi shrugged, unbothered by the whole ordeal, before replying. If one of them is acting irrational, a distraction always works. It won't work forever, Ashido piped in, also a student who had siblings. Yeah, but once he has calmed down, we will ask him what's wrong. In the time we have, let's work on keeping Bakugo away from him. Asui instructed. Most of the class nodded along. The next day, Midoriya came to class in a chirpy mood. Shouta had heard from Mirio that Midoriya had rejected Nighteye and was now somehow getting him sued for quirk use on a minor. Sir is worried he might lose his license. The lawyer has a reputation of taking down big names, Mirio had said. You seem to be in a good mood today, Midoriya, Jiro commented as Izuku settled in his seat. Yes, I am, Midoriya responded, smiling like a child who just had his favorite ice cream. Can I ask why? Well, I went to the interview with Nighteye, and he was really rude and made me uncomfortable. I called Mom last night and told her what Nighteye did, and apparently he did a lot of illegal things, so Mom is suing him for that. Midoriya chirped. Ah, I read it on the Hero News this morning. Has your mom hired the Crimson Viper? Ida asked. He knew Midoriya wasn't that well off, and the Crimson Viper was a very expensive lawyer. Not many individuals could afford her. Mom is the Crimson Viper, although she does not like that name, Midoriya answered. The class gaped at the boy in sheer shock. Shouta, who had heard all of this, was having a breakdown of his own. He knew that intelligence had to come from somewhere, but to be the son of the most feared lawyer in the country, Midoriya seriously did not have the confidence he would have seen in his mom. Wait. The sassy comebacks, the ability to stand up to someone when it was a life-and-death situation, the gall to insult the next alleged #1 hero. Pieces of the puzzle started to click into place, but it wasn't a clear picture. The confidence was making itself known just now. Midoriya had been backsassing them all the time, just not vocally, and something in those past few days has happened to make him realize that he could do it without fear. A small part of Shouta, however, was fearful. What if in another one of his raging fits, Midoriya decides that Shouta wasn't a competent teacher, and just because of his logical ruses, UA had the Crimson Viper on its tail? Shouta shuddered at the thought. He hoped whatever had happened to the boy would pass by quickly. Hisashi came back to the teacher's lounge in a very happy mood. His angel child was back to his angel child ways. I think Midoriya is back to being Midoriya, Hisashi announced, and right then they heard an announcement. 2 students fighting in the cafeteria, identified as Midoriya Izuku and Monoma Nato, respective homeroom teachers to handle the situation, a robotic voice announced. Too soon? Hisashi asked. Too soon, Shouta concluded, as he moved to the cafeteria. Shouta used his quirk as soon as he got vision of the teens, but realized that Midoriya packed a punch without his quirk, and Monoma Nato was going to need Recovery Girl's assistance to fix his nose. It took 2 minutes in total for someone to show him a video of the altercation. Monoma, the brat, had always had Class 1A on the radar, and because Midoriya shrunk under his criticisms, he was the main focus of said criticism. It was this time Midoriya had said, "Not today," and proceeded to call him out on why he is so jealous of 1A. Monoma had promptly brought up Todoroki and Bakugo failing the provisional licensing exam, and how 1B had passed, and how 1A was just lucky in living the hype. How Midoriya had passed the provisional licensing exam, but failed to get a work study as soon as the hero realized that Midoriya wasn't good enough. How many work study offers did you get, Mr. Phantom Thief? Midoriya jabbed right back at Monoma. From the face you're making, I'm going to assume you got none. After all, who would even consider someone so immature that they're always jealous of the success of those around them? Midoriya taunted. Monoma, for the amount of insults he dished out. Couldn't take any that were directed towards him, so he made the decision to pounce on Midoriya. Not a good decision. Midoriya was far superior to him when it came to close-ranged combat, and even if he had Kendo's quirk to defend himself, he never really stood a chance against the green-haired teen. That was when Shouta and Vlad were able to intervene. "Midoriya, back to class. We will talk about this," Shouta said in a gruff voice. The comments of, "such a dad," didn't go unheard. Midoriya huffed at Monoma before leaving like he wanted to do more than he had already done. The beginnings of a headache made themselves known to Shouta. "Ida, Yaoyorozu, I'm trusting you to stop him the next time. You can use your quirk if you need to," he said as he left to the staff room. 2 hero students fighting each other wasn't a good look, and this was Midoriya's 3rd-time offense. Shouta had to do something. As soon as Shouta got comfortable on his chair to think about a solution, Vlad King marched inside and went straight for Yagi, who had just returned from the hospital after spending 2 days in surgery. "You go handle your child," Vlad ordered, glaring right at the sickly-looking man. Yagi, sickly as he was, coughed up some blood in sheer surprise at the statement. "Midoriya's your kid, right? Go handle him," Vlad clarified. I am not related to young Midoriya," he finally managed, face red with embarrassment. "Is Monoma going to be okay?" Shouta intervened. "No, apparently that little devil has not only bruised Monoma to the point where he looks like something stepped on him, but also bruised his ego, which he holds precious. I told you to keep your brat away from him in the beginning of the year. I had a hunch he wasn't taking the insults well. You reasoned that Midoriya needed to fight his own battles," Shouta replied. Vlad pursed his lips. He did not have an answer. "I would still admit, this has been a complete 180 in Midoriya's behavior. It just doesn't feel natural," Shouta continued. "It can be a quirk affecting him. He has been acting this way since the provisional licensing exam. Who knows what quirks were there?" Midnight suggested. "Have any one of you even considered the fact that this might not be a quirk, but just little Midoriya figuring out that there's another way to respond when you feel you are not being treated right?" Hound Dog suggested, with a sly smile on his face. Shota's left eye twitched. "You mean to say—" He trailed off for some reason. "You mean to say that this is the Green Beans' version of a teenage rebellion?" Namuri squealed as she finished the sentence. As if on cue, Vlad and Hisashi hit their heads on the table. "You mean to say that this is not going away?" The voice hero was wailing now. "He is 16. Isn't it a little too late for turning rebellious?" Shouta asked, continually rubbing the bridge of his nose to ease the headache. "If we are talking about normal children, yes. At this point, the rebellious stage is usually coming to an end, as the hormonal changes start to become the new normal," Hound Dog answered, calmly as usual. "Why is Midoriya's only starting?" Shouta asked, hoping to get a way to solve things. "Midoriya has been functionally quirkless most of his life, so it's only natural for him to not feel strong enough to stand up to something he felt was wrong," Nezu answered from the speaker installed in the staff room. Shouta rolls his eyes. Of course the rat was listening to everything. Then he thinks about it. Midoriya has lived his life functionally quirkless, and he went to school with Bakugo. It didn't happen all at once, but the kid's self-confidence has been increasing from the start of the year. Imagine you somehow gained enough power to beat the very person who from the beginning called you a name that meant useless. And you beat said person. Would you not use it at every opportunity you got? Hound Dog inquires. Shouta thinks about it as he folds his hands. Revenge is completely irrational. Doing that would only do more harm than good. That's the point of teenage rebellion. It doesn't have to make sense. Hound Dog chuckles. Shouta can understand now that the man is having too much fun with Midoriya behaving like that. How do I fix it then? Shouta asks. Hound Dog stops chuckling and thinks it over. That's the thing. You don't have to stop this behavior as long as it is rational. If the things bothering him go away, he will go back to his normal self anyways, and think about it. As much of a kind spirit Midoriya is, he is still a child with an impressionable mind. He is still finding himself and the person he wants to be. Shouta does not approve of the fact that Hound Dog is correct. Shouta has had a habit of treating his students like sidekicks, but in the process, he sometimes forgets that they are not 40. They are literal children. The same applies to Midoriya. He is also a child, after all. Shouta has to start treating him like one, for his own good. I hope you have had time to reflect upon your actions. Shouta starts once he is inside the classroom. Midoriya is sitting alone, having to stay behind because of the detention. I am not apologizing, Midoriya growls. I am not asking you to, Shouta says as he makes his way to the short teen and takes a seat behind him. Then why am I here? Midoriya asks with a pout. Shouta fights the urge to smile at how adorable the boy looks. You are here because it's school rules. You don't get to harm a fellow student outside of training, Shouta answers, his tone calm and cool. Well, Monoma deserved it. He is a big jerk, Midoriya protests. And so are Nighteye and Bakugo, right? Shouta questions with a frown. Midoriya looks at him with mild shock, then suddenly something shifts and Shouta sees Midoriya's demeanor change in an instant. I am not apologizing to any of them either, Midoriya declares, with determination shining in his eyes. Again, I am not asking you to. We are here to spend time and think over what you can do better if you find yourself in a similar situation. What if I think what I did was the best way to handle the situation? Midoriya challenges. It doesn't matter what you think was the best way. Let's take Monoma, for example. Why didn't you report his harassment to me or any teacher? Shouta asks, and the boy frowns. Well, teachers... The kid finds it difficult to form words. Anger and frustration clear in his eyes. Did you think no one would do anything about it? Shouta asks, a hand on the boy's shoulder. You have not done anything to prevent Kachan from being mean, so I guess I thought Monoma was also that. An unfairness in the world of heroes we had to overcome, so I overcame it, Midoriya answers, throwing Shota's own words at him. What makes you think I did nothing about Bakugo? Shouta retorts, a little ashamed that his words had caused the child to make such assumptions. He attacked me on the first day when he was angry. You stopped him, but did nothing otherwise. During the hero training exercise, you told him to grow up and did nothing else after, and then teamed him up against me during the final exams. Midoriya listed off, and Shouta could see a lawsuit coming. Contrary to what Midoriya believed, Shouta had reprimanded Bakugo multiple times, but he hadn't really taken action because Bakugo's heart was in the right place. He was the kind of person who would learn more from failure and defeats rather than punishment and other stuff. I am truly sorry about Bakugo. It took me too long to realize that your interactions were toxic. And that is what I am telling you now. Your mask of kind smiles and, oh, I am okay, made me doubt my deductions. It wasn't until your fight last week that I discovered what the true nature of your relationship was with him. Shouta replied, with guilt in his eyes. So he gets to do it all his life, and I retaliate once and I'm told to be the bigger person? Izuku snaps at Shouta as the anger that had subsided a little over the day had returned in full force. No. Shouta trailed off, then remembered what Hound Dog said and continued. You are still a child who is expected to make mistakes along the way. You still have to discover who you are as a person, and I am not saying you should not. After all, that's how you grow. All I am saying is don't let this innate need to have revenge for a decade of bad treatment define who you are. I am still going to punch Monoma if he says anything mean, Izuku said with a pout, the anger receding a little bit. Vlad King is talking to him right now. It won't happen again. If it does, we have told Monoma that we aren't breaking the fight. And if Kachan gets to show off his quirk to add flair to his threats, I do have one of my own, the boy added. As long as it is only for show and theatrics, go nuts. But if it's going to turn into a fight, consider coming to me first, Shouta replied with a smile. He really was dealing with a kid. Even if it changes close to nothing, Shouta thought it was fair. Midoriya had missed this part of his childhood, the ability to have fun and show strength to his peers because his quirk was so impractical. The child yearned for recognition and respect, and if he let it continue for a little while, he would. The small outbursts of anger continued for a while. It resulted in several detentions, but also several meaningful talks. Didn't mean Midoriya was a delinquent by any means. It was just a normal teenager being a teenager. Down the line, Shouta found out that Midoriya had been falsely given detentions in his old school, so maybe inside the boy's childish mind, he wanted to have detentions that he truly deserved. Years later, when asked about a funny story about the number one hero, Monoma, aka Phantom Thief, would retell this phase of the boy, where he would go around breaking benches and starting food fights, where he would run around with a short fuse and never back down from a fight. Everyone would have a hearty laugh at the expense of the number one hero, but in the end it was what defined him. All Might had been an ideal symbol, with no blemish or black mark. He laughed in the face of everything. Deku wasn't All Might. He was stronger, yes. He had multiple powers, yes. But he had also been a supposed delinquent in high school. He provided hope to not only the perfect kids, he provided hope to the delinquents, kids who were at the bottom of the pile, because Deku wasn't a hero who always won, or had always been unbeatable. He broke bones to use his quirk. He cried. He got angry. And if he could make it to the top, so could anyone. That is why Deku was never called the symbol of peace and justice. No, he had a much bigger title. The symbol of hope. All right, listeners, this concludes the one-shot, Teenage Rebellion, and Consequences Thereof. I love this one-shot. I think the author does a really nice job of creating this AU where we get to see an Izuku who actually learns a different perspective from Ground Beta, really starts kicking things off and realizing that, he's developed an ability to have a little more safety and confidence, the ability to branch out and have that rebellious stage that he was denied for so long. So it's really nice kind of seeing this play out. And I love the fact that we get a lot of teacher POVs in this one too. So we get to see their perspectives, not just like the class or students. So I thought the author did a great job there. Would love to hear your thoughts and your reactions to the fic in the comments below. Let me know what you're thinking. This fic is also located on AO3, and in my perspective, hasn't gotten nearly enough support over there. So if you have an opportunity, if you could slide over, leave comments, kudos, and support to the original author, I'm sure it would be much appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for listening.